So once you have one of your sketches just ready, once you select one of the options, in this case, I will go with this one, with this sketch. You have to start to think, as I said in the previous lesson, you have to start to research, just to create your folders with your reference. But before to do that, you have to keep in mind some aspect on your composition, on your sketch. In this case, we have something like this, right? This is going to be something like an environment with mountains, with some buildings. And one thing that will make your process more easy is just differentiate or just separate all of the details you have to create to looking for your reference. So in this case, for example, we have to think about what kind of buildings we want to create. We were talking about to create that continuity between the architecture of all the buildings. So probably will be really useful to separate that aspects. For example, here we have this kind of this kind of domes that probably will be really important for our visual language in the composition. So you have to be focused on just looking for this kind of buildings, this kind of architecture. Here we can just see more details like this kind of arcs, so this will be another aspect really important to our research. This kind of details on the buildings will be important as well. What about these kind of towers? That's gonna be another important, because this is something that will help us to broke discontinuity, because here we have this kind of this kind of buildings with the same proportions, this and this. All of them are different, but really similar at the same time, and that's because they have more or less the same proportions. But here we still have the same style, but the proportions are totally different. So that's really nice to broke that continuity. So all of those aspects are going to be really important once we start to looking for the reference. Here we have a bridge, so that's gonna be another important thing. Here we have another one, so we have to start about, are we gonna create the same bridge for the whole composition, or probably we'll make something here, I don't know, a bridge with this kind of big arcs, probably these structures, and here this kind of ornaments, that we will have to design once we have everything clear. And what about this? We're going to create something more simple, to create a different bridge. Those aspects are going to be really important once we start our research on our reference. The ornaments, some elements like this will be another thing really important. And once we have that, more or less clear, we have to start about the environment, the nature. So here we have this kind of mountains. So we must looking for mountains, this kind of peaks, this kind of reference that will help us to develop our mountains, our landscape. Here we have another important element, that this is the clouds. This will be really important to create that atmosphere. Really, it's going to be something really important, to create our landscape. And also this will be really really important to the storytelling. If you are just giving to your landscape some storytelling, you have to think about what kind of atmosphere you want to create. Are you creating something close to a fantasy style? You are just doing your environment during the night, or you prefer to make something like a sunset with a light, coming from this side, and just creating this nice reflection on the clouds. And also here, that will give to your composition these extra details, really important for the storytelling. All of these details, all of these things, all of this stuff are really important for the reference. Also the sky. The sky is another important part in our environment, because if you see here, we have buildings, we have mountains, but we have all of these empty space just behind all of these buildings. That is our sky. So we have to think about what kind of sky we want, with what kind of colors we want to show in our sky. So that's going to be another important thing. So to do that, what I did is just to create, just like in this case, 4 folders. One of these is the architecture, atmosphere, environment, and vegetation. And inside all of the folders, I just start to gather all of these reference, all of these details that I see, that probably will be really important, will be really interesting for my composition. So as I said, we have this kind of rounded building. So yeah, I started to think about what kind of details, what kind of ornaments, what kind of details are giving that continuity to my buildings. This, probably here you saw on, something like that, and just detail just here over the top that you think is important. So just pick the picture and just save in your folder and start to create your little library with your reference. The same like atmosphere, all of these details are going to be really important. You see that clouds that give to your composition these kind of extra details, extra amazing details. These, for example, are really interesting because it's gonna create this kind of volumetric lighting, really useful and really nice to create in Blender. So just if you think that this could be interesting, just save that picture, that kind of pictures. Yeah, look at that clouds. Also this. The environment, the another important part here, because if you see just under all of these buildings we have that mountains that, yeah, we have to start to think what kind of mountains we want to create, what kind of textures we want to show in that mountains. Even the waterfalls could be really interesting, because just, could be a really important, really interesting element here, just falling from our mountains. Yeah, just take your time. Don't worry to spend your time to find good reference, because this could be, let's say, the base of our project. So if you don't spend the necessary time to looking for your reference, you will stop every time you want to see other reference during the process, and this could be really, really annoying, because this will make to you make and stop every time you want to looking for something, and probably you will lose a lot of time. So just spend your time, just take your time in this step, create your folders. In this case I just create those 4, like architecture, atmosphere, environment, and vegetation, because I think that for my composition are probably the most important. But if you think that you need to create another one, like, I don't know, persons or people, or just another folder with a color palette, just do it. So just create the folder you think will be useful for your process. Here the same, we have vegetation. That probably could be really interesting to just, pick up this kind of trees, this kind of, colors for our vegetation, because probably this would be, something like gardens or something like that close to our buildings. So yeah, for me, I think it's another important aspect in our composition. So I just created that folder, and once you have all of these folders, once you have all of your reference ready, one of the things I recommend you is just to take any software like this, for example, PureRef. This is a software where you can just put all of your reference inside. Like this. I'm gonna make it bigger, the screen. And I have something like those groups with all the reference that I think are important. So to do that, just take that software. It's free. I think you can just find a free version of that in pureref.com. So just go there. It's like an app, and once you have the software, the app ready, and when you open it, you have something like this, this kind of, it's like a bar. So what I do is just open your folder, just try to select everything, and once you have everything selected, just drop it on the canvas of the software. So PureRef automatically will give you something like this, a block, a bar with all of the reference, and you can just zoom in or zoom out just to looking for your picture. Because if not, what you have to do is just open just one reference, and just if you want to looking for something, just you have to pass through all the reference, and that could be really annoying, and probably you will lose a lot of time just looking for what reference you want. So here you have everything, and if you want to just focus on one of them, just make zoom in or zoom out to looking for the other one. So what I do is just basically make the same with the other ones. So just go to atmosphere, select all of them, just drop it, and you have another group. Just select all of them and just separate it, to differentiate every group. And the same, just zoom in or zoom out just to looking for the reference. So it's gonna make the same with the other. And also with the vegetation. Yeah, and you have this board, really useful to just to start to work. What you have to do now is just right click and save the file, something really easy. The most important thing here is when you have your board just ready, if you want to add more pictures during the process, just gonna make a test with this one. Just select the picture you want to add and just drop it, and you will have it in the same, in the same board. So you can update your board every time you find something interesting. And the other important aspect here for the PureRef is that you have the board just floating on your screen, and you can work, for example, in Photoshop, with the board just floating over Photoshop. So that's gonna be really interesting if you are just focused on one of these details and you want to keep working in Photoshop, and you want to keep painting, but at the same time you want to have your reference just beside your workspace. Of course you want to, of course you can just change the size of that screen, and you can just make the same, zoom out or just zoom in if you want to create several pictures at the same time, and you're just working with those colors, with those interesting details, and you can keep working on Photoshop or Blender, for example. At the same time, you have your reference just floating. If you want to just hide that screen, just right click and you go to Window and just click here or Ctrl M, and that's all. You can just keep working on your canvas. So that's another interesting part. Just before to start working, it's really important to have everything ready. it's important to have a solid base before to keep working on your project, before to start to create your environment. And yeah, that's all for the moment. And the next lesson, we're going to talk about Blender. We're going to make a brief introduction to Blender, and probably we're going to start to create some interesting stuff there.